Hello, hello. This is I hope it's going to be such a great conversation because I think this is so pertinent to people, especially post pandemic and just life in general. So, welcome to this conversation. My name is Linda Downey. I'm a transformational health coach and a spiritual coach, and I wanted to talk with you tonight about fear. About fear. If you have never lived in fear, then you can go somewhere else. You don't need to listen to this conversation. But if you've ever been fearful, and I lived many years in fear, so I completely understand that. I understand how it can get you by the throat, and you just feel, hi, Charm, thanks for listening. How fear can get you by the throat and really become the dominant force in your life. So that's what tonight's conversation is going to be. This is streaming in multiple places. So Charm just said hello to me from Georgia, right? Charm, I think you're in Georgia. I'm in New Jersey, by the way. So if you say hello and you want to share where you're listening from, I'd love to know that. And this is also a podcast episode for the podcast, The Unconditioned Life, which is about stopping living from the conditioning of your life, the patterns, the beliefs, the conditioned way that you've learned to be so that you can create your life in the way that you want. And I think one of the things that people want to do is get rid of fear and stop living in fear. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Okay. So fear, thank you. So I thought it was Georgia, Southeast Georgia. Okay. So Fear is a really normal condition for human beings because what it is to be a human being is to be in survival. So, for millennia, since as long as there have been human beings walking the earth, we've had to survive. So fear and survival have always been part of the human experience, right? We don't have to survive from predators anymore, at least not four-legged predators, but we have to survive in today's world. And we oftentimes feel really threatened about our job, about money. Maybe you get a health diagnosis and you're fearful about what does that mean? How is that going to change my life? How is that? Am I ever going to get better again? Maybe you're facing a divorce and you're fearful about, will I be okay after that happens? Or you won't get the divorce because you're afraid you won't be okay. And so you stay in a situation that you're not happy with, or in a job, staying in a job situation you're not happy with because you're afraid if I leave this job, maybe I'm not going to be making the same amount of money. Maybe it's going to affect my, my long-term moving up in my career, whatever it looks like. Fear is prevalent everywhere. And it's just because when we are living our human experience, we are needing to survive. And so when I pigeonhole it like that, it's because we come from a place of I have to figure this out. So we're using our conscious mind to problem solve and figure things out, and we're afraid we're not going to figure it out well, or it's not going to go the way that we want. And that is the way that human beings operate when we're very invested in and tied to and focused on the human way that we know how to do things. But what I want to offer to you is there's a whole other dimension of who you are that would not only help you navigate through fear, it can actually diminish fear, like completely diminish it. And in addition to fear, it can also bring you back into joy. It can bring you back into connection. It can have you be feeling love in a way you haven't felt it before. And that aspect of you is the spiritual aspect of you. When you only live and use the tools that are available as a human being, which is problem solving, figuring it out, and then working hard to get the outcome you want, that's what you've got. And then fear is very much a part of that, because it's part of the human experience, and also because you don't really know if you're going to get the outcome you want. But we are spiritual beings. We are much more than human beings. We actually are spiritual. We are spiritual in nature. In fact, many people, not just me, I didn't make this up, but people who really work on their spirituality would say we are actually spiritual beings who just happen to be living a three-dimensional human experience. But really, the nature of who and what we are is spiritual. The nature of who and what we are is energy, not my skin and bones and muscles and problem-solving skills, but actually energy that's tied to God, the energy that we come from, which is God, universal, intelligent, perfect, organized energy. When we live in fear, we're not organized. Our brain is scattered. We have anxiety. We have thoughts all over the place. Our right to left side of our brain doesn't talk to each other. All that happens when we're stuck in fear, and then we're trying really hard. But when we go, okay, let me leave that aspect for a moment and go into my spiritual aspect, what can I get from that? Well, when you tap into the spiritual part of you, you tap into the truth of you, which is energy, and you tap into the biggest, most perfect resource that there is, which is the universe. And when you have that to work with and to help you with decisions, when you have that to guide you, when you have that, when you're connected to that, the fear goes away. You don't need to be in fear. Now, here's why, if you're thinking, oh, I'm spiritual enough. Yes, I do spiritual things, and I pray, and I go to church, and I do whatever else it is that you do, but you still feel fearful. This is what I want to offer you to think about. First of all, a lot of our humanness about spirituality has fear tied to it. So if you're following like rules and religious rules, then you're fearful, am I doing it right? You're fearful of judgment, right? A lot of religion has judgment in it. Religion is man-made. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your own true connection in yourself and in your heart, your spiritual heart. And when you're not feeling the results that you want, when you still are staying scared and anxious, it's because you're doing those practices from here. You're doing them in a human way, right? You're like, okay, I need to pray every day, or I need to go to church. But you haven't shifted anything in your body. So all of the beliefs that have you be fearful are still there. So what I mean is, if you have a fear like, I'm just not good enough. I'm not good enough to do a different job. I'm not good enough to have a different relationship. I'm not good enough to get the results that I want in any area of your life. It's just not going to happen for me. If that's a fear, it's a belief, but it's a fear as well. And you're praying to try to like get different results. Once you leave the prayer or whatever other spiritual practice you might already be doing, that's really like a Band-Aid. It's no different than any other Band-Aid, like a supplement or a medication for an illness, right? If you have an illness and you have symptoms and you take your meds, you have high blood pressure, let's say. So you take a pill, the pill brings down your blood pressure. As soon as the pill wears off, your blood pressure goes up. So you really didn't change your blood pressure. The pill is managing it. When you really don't change your beliefs, the prayer might make you feel better while you're doing prayer. But as soon as you leave the prayer, you're back in fear again, because you really didn't change anything. You still have those internal beliefs. And when you're holding internal beliefs like, I'm not good enough, it's not going to happen for me, whatever else, I'm not lovable, unworthiness, that is a disconnect from the divinity that you are. That's a disconnect from the divine source that you are. You can't connect to it when you hold those beliefs. You just can't. And that keeps you in fear. So, and here's what I want to offer you also to think about. You know, when people say, if you go to the book of Genesis in the Bible, right? In the book of Genesis, there was nothing. and then God spoke. So there was nothing. God spoke and created what he created. He created the world, he created everything. Before God spoke, there was nothing. So God spoke everything into creation from a background of nothing already there. As divine beings, as coming from that same energy source that is God, we also have to create from nothing. When you're praying and trying to connect to God on a background of fear, you're not doing it from nothing. You're doing it on top of your limiting, fearful beliefs. And now I'm going to go and try and, pray to God, connect to God. Oh, I'm very religious. I'm very much connected to God, but you're doing it on top of these fears. You will not release your fears, and you won't create what you want to create. Just like God spoke from nothing, you need to clear that out so that you can be connected to that kind of power. If you're trying to connect through like a fog of unworthiness and unlovability and judgment, you won't connect. And so you're going to stay fearful. So there's, to truly develop your spirituality, and I'm not saying it happens overnight. I'm not saying I have that all handled. It's been a journey that I've been on. And because the most improvements that I received were from that journey, that's why I decided to get trained in doing that with people. It was much more effective than doing all of the things from the human aspect, like all of the things for health. Let me manage my health with, let's just say diet, exercise, detox, getting rid of toxins in your house, chemicals, things like that, trying to sleep better. Those are all the physical things, but without the connection to spirit, they didn't fully work. Trying to connect to spirit without clearing out what's there blocking your connection is why you still feel fear. I have trouble saying that for some reason, feel fear. So I've definitely worked with clients where we get started and they're like, yeah, I pray, I meditate, I do all that stuff. And I'm also on pills for anxiety. That's because you go into the prayer or the meditation or whatever it is you do, and it's no different than a Band-Aid. It really isn't. Because as soon as you leave it, you come back out and you're right into what you already believe and think and feel. You've got to create from nothing, and you've got to reconnect so that you can create from nothing. So it's a process to reconnect. The perfect love casts out fear. Yes, Charm is saying, so I'm reading comments here as you hear me mumbling. Perfect love casts out fear. Yeah, and when we don't love ourselves, we can't get to that. So that's the other thing is I've had women say, I love God. I have a great relationship with God. I don't love myself. So I want you to think about that. I am not judging your relationship with God, but I am saying if you don't love yourself, what you're really saying is, I don't love this creation that God made, which is me. So if I love God and I think that he's perfect, or, the universe is perfect and everything is in divine order, how can I not be lovable? How can I not be okay? So that's the place to look, because people really, really do have trouble loving themselves, expressing self-love. And expressing self-love doesn't mean you go and get a manicure. Expressing self-love, for example, means embracing all the parts of you, all of the, whatever you think is a flaw, wherever you think you are in your journey, embracing that, acknowledging it, holding it as part of you with love and compassion for what you've experienced, for the way that you think, for your thoughts and feelings. That's self-love. To be able to look in the mirror. This is an exercise that's really powerful. I invite you to do this maybe when we're done with this conversation or at another time. Go into your bedroom or your bathroom, set your timer on your phone for 1 minute, and stare into your own eyes. Your own eyes. Look yourself in the eyes. It is amazing how uncomfortable that is for people. I would also say if you live with someone, another human being, and you feel safe and comfortable enough to do this with them, ask them to do it with you for a minute, where you're completely looking into each other's eyes. If you do that, I would love to know. You could drop a comment later. I did it and this is what happened, or I did it and I couldn't stand it for a whole minute, or I did it for a minute and this is what happened. I would love to know. But that is the ability to be with yourself and to embrace everything about you without judgment. That is true self-love. And that's when you start to connect to the truth of who you are. And when you connect to that and you have access to the divine source of energy that we all come from, there's no reason to be fearful, because you know, when I access that, I'm going to get the right answer. When I access that, I'm going to be guided. I don't have to worry if, what decision am I going to make on the job? What if it's not going to be okay? When I access that, I can trust in my health and my physical body. I can even trust that if I'm going to lose someone, if someone dies, that they're going to be okay. So you start to get your trust back and you really see all of the things that you're afraid of every day, minute by minute, hour by hour, that has you. When you lay down and put your head on your pillow at night, what's keeping you awake? That's what you're giving your life to. And when you connect to your spiritual side, let the human side take a pause, connect to your spiritual side. It's like, I don't have to do that. I really don't have to do that. I really feel peace. And now I have the room and the energy to love other people, to love myself, to share and be compassionate. When you're stuck in fear, you can't do that. You're surviving. You're still surviving, even though you're not running from a tiger. It's very hard to be compassionate and give and love and, create connection and great relationship when you're in survival. It's almost impossible, which is why so many relationships end. Mine ended, and completely fear was the third partner in our marriage. That's what I should say. We were actually a triplet, not a couple, and fear was the third one. And that's a huge, huge contributor to why my marriage didn't last. So I have spent a lot of time on my own spirituality and being trained in helping people get connected to that. I'm actually starting it's a year-long spiritual mastermind that's going to start this month. If you want to have that partnership, it's something we do together. It's a small group. I would love to have you come on it. Come on it and develop your own spirituality. Learn what you need to let go of in order to reconnect to that. And very specific tools and practices, very specific, to be able to create what you want from nothing, like God. Create from nothing rather than trying to operate on top of fear and false beliefs. Okay? So let me know, drop me a comment, and I would love to see you there. But whether you do or not, I encourage you to look at what spiritual practices do you have, and if they're not making the difference, what's in the way of that? What's in the way of accessing that? And if you look and see, you'll have the answer. You will. Okay, so have a great night. I will see you again soon. I'm sure I'll see you over a cup of coffee probably tomorrow morning. Take care.